Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for joining us at this time. Now, first of all, we are expecting Jokowi to visit Malaysia this Thursday. Maybe from the point of view of ASEAN BAC, what are some of preparations for the visit itself?
Well, I think it's a national visit, so the preparations will be at the governmental level. But more than just the bilateral and even ASEAN matters that would be discussed, I think President Jokowi is an inspiration to true democrats, and not least in ASEAN. Yeah? And therefore, his visit has a meaning, I think, which even transcends, you know, the bilateral and regional aspects, you know. And he, most of all, is a man of the people. I know there are some, you know, domestic political problems in Indonesia right now, and but these things happen. Sometimes you have your party, you have a party president, you know, who can, you know, want certain things, and it can cause some disturbance to what you want to do. After all, even in Malaysia, even a former leader can want certain things, and it is a fact of life, you know, fact of political life. So, you know, I think he will ride over that domestic problem. Some people are saying he's going to bring that domestic problem with him, and he's not going to be able to focus. Most leaders are able to focus. You know, they have so many tracks to think about, and I think he will be able to focus. And what will he focus on? I suppose this is what you're most interested in.
Yes.
And obviously, I mean, we have bilateral, you know, relations that need to be strengthened.
Yes.
Saudara serumpun is not actually, you know, the end product. The end product must be an identification of mutual interests rather than saudara serumpun. I think for too long, you know, the saudara serumpun has become a kind of sort of clarion call for our relations. It's not true. You know, Indonesia has got interests. It's got interests about its workers here, and he is being a man of the people. I believe he'll be spending the first part of his visit with his people in Malaysia. And so, you know, he wants to show that he cares. And, you know, there are people who are laborers, there are people who are house workers, and he, to them, it's very important how we treat those people.
Yes.
And so that is a matter that must be addressed very, very carefully. And then there are territorial issues, you know, largely, of course, it's maritime territorial issues. I mean, there have been recent cases where fishermen sort of fishing in Indonesian waters, you know, have had their ships wrecked by the Indonesians. I think it's the toughness that he wants to show, that, you know, you don't come and take our resources, you know, away. And then what we have to do is to look for tangible outcomes from this visit on a bilateral basis. First of all, I think the proton thing is quite an interesting prospect, and it forms a basis of something that can happen. We both drive on the left-hand side of the road, you know, you know, and of course the market is huge. Of course, how are you going to mix it? You know, are you going to have sort of just automobiles, Malaysia, vans, and 4x4s and so on, Indonesia? You know, the mix is quite important going from here. And are going to use higher technology, you know, electric cars or what have you. So I think that's a good, solid foundation, you know, in which to found the relations.
Yes.
And I think there are other things too, you know, because Indonesia, Jokowi in particular, is very interested in infrastructure.
Yes.
And we think of infrastructure purely in economic terms, right? Infrastructure makes everything more efficient and
more FDI and so on.
And to him, I think, the most important thing about infrastructure is it improves the people's lives.
Yes.
They have electricity, they have water, they have bridges, they have roads, and their lives go up. Employment for them. I mean, those are the basic things from infrastructure. We can help in some ways on a bilateral basis to make infrastructure financing possible for Indonesia. Not a complete answer. It's a huge amount that they need, you know, billions and billions. But to show good faith, to develop their infrastructure through fundraising, or capital market assistance in Malaysia, and on that bilateral basis, show, mutual benefit. And then also, from that bilateral base, the bilateral fundamental, it can even spread to the rest of ASEAN.
Yes.
So if we, Malaysia and Indonesia, are able to achieve a lot of positive, tangible, mutually beneficial outcomes in our relationship, it will be of tremendous boost to ASEAN. It can multiply. Others will want to come and join in. Even if you move away from economics, you go into politics. Let's say the law of the, sort of South China Sea problems. Just imagine, Malaysia and Indonesia worked more closely together. I mean, they could have an impact on how ASEAN moves, the speed with which ASEAN moves. To find, if not quite a solution to the South China Sea disputes, at least to ensure that the code of conduct is in place, to ensure that there is no flare-up. Whilst there's no solution, there's also no flare-up.
Yes.
And then on that basis, then you come back to economics. You have the joint development of the sea resources and of course, exploitation of other assets such as fish and so on, in the South China Sea. So Malaysia and Indonesia have got the capability, if they worked together, to make a difference to the region and certainly in their mutual relations.
Tan Sri, I want to talk about on ASEAN. We know that ASEAN is facing greater challenges, be it economic background and different economic background and etc. So with this visit, what sort of topics can we expect to be discussed by both leaders?
Well, as you know, it's often said that the Indonesian commitment, to ASEAN, or particularly the ASEAN economic community, sometimes is felt to be a little lukewarm, And I think it may or may not be so, actually, as countries approach their interests, as new precedents come in, and people say, oh, what's changing? What do you suss out from that particular statement, et cetera, et cetera. I think one of the mistakes in the ASEAN integration, economic integration effort particularly, is the assumption that the benefits are self-evident. The benefits are not self-evident. You got to tell people, talk to people, prove to people about those benefits. And as the chairman of Asean BAC, I feel not just at the official level, also in the private sector level, there's not been sufficient communication and sufficient briefings to show how the benefits are going to come. So there's this fear that we are the large market and everyone's going to come and descend upon us, and we are going to be the losers. However, it is not the case, because everyone's descending upon us already. With or without ASEAN, we have free trade agreements, we have the WTO, and and there are new agreements coming in the pipeline. So it's an open market. Now, having the ASEAN community makes it possible for ASEAN to group together and focus on its market, and then to bring up the level of different levels of development among the ASEAN countries to up, everyone going up. For example, there was a new survey just at the end of last year of 171 companies, 3/4 of whom were foreign multinationals. Interesting, making my point about how the outside people are coming in already. Only 1/4 of whom were the big ASEAN companies. Showed what were their intentions and plans going ahead, taking advantage of the ASEAN economic community. One interesting thing that came out from that survey was that there is a great intention to increase manufacturing investment in Indonesia. Indonesia, number 1. And number 2, Myanmar. Such that in the next 2-3 years, when these things happen, Indonesia will be the manufacturing center in ASEAN. It also shows companies having a footprint in more countries. So in the past, you have sales teams operating from Singapore or center, and now they decide, especially in manufacturing, where they want to let their products be known. They want to. The sales teams are trying to get the markets,
yes.
and that means the sales of products, whether originating in Indonesia or originating in Thailand, is going to be more effective, as the economies grow from the investments that's going to take place. ASEAN is one market, as we know, is well over $2.4 trillion US dollars actually now. The latest numbers show something close to $2.7 trillion, which is, seventh largest in the world. You have the population, people say 600 million now, it's 625 million. People, and you have about 60% of them under 40. There's going to be a consumer boom, and just imagine if you were the manufacturing center in a consumer boom environment, how much expansion is there going to be? And therefore your economy is going to grow. There's only one aspect, manufacturing. In the services sector, for example, some of the work done by the ASEAN Business Club, which I'm the president also, the ASEAN Business Club, shows the benefit to the Indonesian economy of having fifth freedom, rights. How the GDP will grow, how many more arrivals, tourist arrivals there will be, how much more sort of what do you call it, air transport, there's going to be goods, coming in, cargo is going to increase. So there's going to be growth for everyone,
yes.
Growth for everyone. It will never, ever be the same for everyone, but everyone's going to be uplifted.
Yeah.
And so I think Indonesia's perasaan was-was sometimes has got to be assuaged. You have to show them the case. And I hope ASEAN BAC gets an opportunity to try at least to show some of the salient benefits, right. the quick hits, the quick benefits, and work some more. Of course, if one swallow does not make a summer,
yes.
we have to follow up. There's a lot of work ahead. Therefore, coming back to my main point, the benefits are not self-evident. We have to make them evident.
And promote more awareness to the businesses and also the countries itself. Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for joining us at this time. That's all the time we have for today. We'll try to get you for 7:45 tonight, if possible.